The room fell silent as Eleanor grabbed the microphone from my best friend's hand. I stood frozen beside the gift table, my hand instinctively moving to rest on my 7-month belly, watching in disbelief as my mother-in-law positioned herself at the front of the room like she was about to deliver a keynote speech. "Thank you all for coming," Eleanor began, her voice syrupy sweet but with an edge that made my stomach clench. "I know this baby shower wasn't planned the way I would have done it. Not the venue I suggested, not the guest list I approved, not the traditions our family has honored for generations." She paused, her eyes scanning the room before landing on me. "But I suppose when outsiders plan these things, we can't expect them to understand what really matters." Gasps rippled through the crowd. My co-workers exchanged shocked glances. My college friends looked horrified. My own mother, standing near the refreshment table, had gone pale. This was supposed to be my day, a celebration of the new life growing inside me. Instead, my mother-in-law had just called me an outsider in front of 60 people. My face burned. Heat crawled up my neck and spread across my cheeks as every eye in the room turned toward me. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, to wake up and discover this was all a nightmare. But it wasn't. This was real. Eleanor was still holding the microphone, a satisfied smirk playing at the corners of her mouth. She knew exactly what she was doing. My husband, Brian, stood near the door, his face a mask of shock and confusion. He looked between his mother and me, clearly torn, but he didn't move. He didn't speak up. He just stood there while his mother humiliated me in front of everyone we knew. I forced my lips into something resembling a smile, even though my hands were trembling. I wouldn't give Eleanor the satisfaction of seeing me break down. Not here. Not now. Not in front of all these people who'd come to celebrate with me. My best friend, Chloe, stepped forward and gently but firmly took the microphone back from Eleanor. "Thank you for those words," she said diplomatically. "Now let's get back to celebrating Lauren and the baby. My name is Lauren Hayes. I'm 30 years old, and until 5 minutes ago, I thought my baby shower would be one of the happiest days of my life. I'd spent weeks planning every detail, the decorations, the menu, the games, the guest list. This was my first baby, and I wanted everything to be perfect. Not for Instagram or to impress anyone, but because I was genuinely excited and wanted to share that joy with the people I loved. I should have known Eleanor would find a way to ruin it. She'd been trying to undermine me since the day I met Brian 4 years ago. At our wedding, she'd worn white and accidentally spilled red wine on my dress during the reception. At family dinners, she made subtle comments about my career, my background, my cooking. Nothing I did was ever good enough for Eleanor Hayes. But this, hijacking the microphone at my baby shower to call me an outsider, this was a new low. And as I stood there, forcing that fake smile while guests shifted uncomfortably and whispered to each other, I made a decision. This couldn't continue. Not anymore. I remembered the first time I met Eleanor, 3 months into my relationship with Brian. He'd been nervous about introducing us, which should have been my first warning sign. We met at an upscale restaurant downtown, the kind of place where the menus don't have prices and the waiters refill your water glass every 30 seconds. Eleanor had arrived 15 minutes late, sweeping in wearing pearls and an expression of barely concealed disapproval. She'd looked me up and down before extending one perfectly manicured hand for the limest handshake I'd ever experienced. "So you're the girl Brian's been seeing," she'd said, not quite making it sound like a compliment. Throughout dinner, she'd peppered me with questions that felt more like an interrogation. Where did my family come from? What did my father do for a living? Where had I gone to school? Each answer seemed to disappoint her further. When Brian excused himself to use the restroom, Eleanor had leaned forward and said quietly, "The Hayes family has a certain standard. I hope you understand that." I'd understood perfectly. I wasn't good enough for her son, and she wanted me to know it. Over the following years, as Brian and I got engaged and then married, Eleanor's campaign of subtle disapproval never stopped. At family dinners, she'd ask questions designed to make me feel inadequate. "Are you sure you can handle hosting Thanksgiving? It's quite an undertaking for someone without experience. The Hayes family has always valued education. It's a shame you only have a bachelor's degree. Brian's father and I built this family on certain principles. I do hope you'll learn them eventually. Every comment was delivered with a smile, making it hard to call her out without seeming oversensitive. Brian would tell me I was reading too much into it, that his mother just had high standards, that she'd warm up to me eventually. But she never did. If anything, she got worse. When we announced we were expecting, I'd hoped motherhood might be the bridge that connected us. Surely she'd be excited about becoming a grandmother. Instead, Eleanor had pursed her lips and said, "Well, I suppose we should start preparing. Though I did hope you'd wait a few more years. You're both so young." I was 30. Brian was 32. We weren't that young. When Chloe offered to host my baby shower, I'd been thrilled. Chloe had impeccable taste and loved planning parties. She'd shown me Pinterest boards and vendor options, and together we'd created something beautiful. A garden party theme with soft pastels, fresh flowers and plans. "I assume you'll be involving me in the arrangements," she'd said, not quite making it a question. The Hayes family has traditions for these occasions. There's a specific way things should be done. I tried to be diplomatic. Chloe's already started planning, and we've got most of it figured out. But of course you're invited, and I'd love your input on. Input? Eleanor's voice had gone cold. I see. So you're shutting me out of my own grandchild's celebration. That's not what I meant, I'd protested. But Eleanor had already hung up. 2 days later, strange things started happening with the shower preparations. Our venue called to say there was confusion about our reservation. The bakery lost our order. Decorations I'd purchased disappeared from Chloe's car. At the time I'd thought it was just bad luck. A series of unfortunate coincidences. Chloe had been frustrated but determined, solving each problem as it arose. We found a new venue at my friend's community center. We reordered the cake. We bought new decorations. But looking back now, standing at my own baby shower while Eleanor smirked at me, the pattern was obvious. She'd been sabotaging us from the beginning. The venue confusion had come from an anonymous call claiming to be from our party, canceling the reservation. The bakery order had been mysteriously changed to a different date. The decorations had vanished after Eleanor visited Chloe's house for tea, an invitation Chloe had extended as an olive branch, hoping to smooth things over. I'd been naive. I'd wanted so badly to believe that Eleanor would eventually accept me, especially now that I was carrying her grandchild, that I'd ignored all the warning signs. I'd made excuses for her behavior, just like Brian always did. But there was no excusing this. This was deliberate. This was cruel. And everyone in this room had just witnessed it. The day of the shower had started badly. I'd arrived at the community center 2 hours early to help Chloe set up, only to find half our decorations mysteriously deflated. The balloon arch we'd spent an hour creating the night before had collapsed overnight, the balloons shriveled and sad-looking. The caterer called to say there was a problem with our food order. Someone had called claiming to be me and had cancelled half the items. Chloe and I had scrambled, making emergency runs to the grocery store, inflating new balloons, calling in favors from friends. By the time guests started arriving, we'd managed to salvage most of it, but I was exhausted and stressed. Then Eleanor had swept in 30 minutes late, carrying an enormous gift basket and wearing an expression of exaggerated concern. "Oh dear," she'd said loudly, looking around at our decorations. "Did something go wrong with the planning? This is so simple. I had offered to help, you know. The Hayes family has always done things with a certain elegance." My friend Ashley, who'd been arranging refreshments, had stopped mid-motion and stared at Eleanor with open disbelief. But I just smiled tightly and thanked her for coming. I should have known then what was coming. When Chloe started to give a welcome speech, Eleanor had pushed forward and simply taken the microphone from her hands. "I'll handle this," she'd said, as if it were her right. And then came the comments. About the venue being quaint in a tone that meant cheap. About the guest list including so many people outside the family circle. About traditions being lost on younger generations who don't understand the importance of doing things properly. Each word was a calculated strike, designed to undermine me while maintaining plausible deniability. After all, she was just talking about traditions, right? She was just offering her perspective. But everyone in that room understood the subtext. I wasn't good enough. I didn't belong in the Hayes family. And this baby shower proved it. My throat burned with unshed tears. My chest felt tight. Part of me wanted to grab the microphone back, to tell Eleanor exactly what I thought of her and her precious traditions. Part of me wanted to run out of the room and never come back. But I did neither. Instead, I stood there and met Eleanor's eyes across the crowded room. And in that moment, I made a silent vow. You will regret this. After Chloe rescued the microphone and the party continued, I moved through the rest of the shower like I was underwater. I opened gifts, smiling and thanking people. I played the games Chloe had planned, laughing at the appropriate moments. I ate cake and made small talk and pretended everything was fine. But inside I was planning. Some guests left early, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. Others stayed but kept shooting sympathetic glances my way. My mother pulled me aside at one point and whispered, "That woman is poison. Brian needs to handle his mother." But Brian didn't handle anything. He'd retreated to a corner after Eleanor's speech, nursing a cup of punch and avoiding eye contact with everyone. When I caught his gaze across the room, he looked away. That hurt almost as much as Eleanor's words. When the shower finally ended and the last guest left, I helped Chloe clean up in silence. "I can't believe she did that," Chloe said, viciously stuffing torn wrapping paper into a trash bag. "In front of everyone. Who does that?" "Eleanor does," I said quietly. "That's who she is." That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while Brian snored softly beside me. His ability to sleep peacefully after the day's disaster amazed me. Or maybe it didn't. He'd had years of practice ignoring his mother's cruelty. I placed my hand on my belly, feeling the baby move. Little flutters and kicks that usually made me smile. Tonight they felt like reminders of what was at stake. This baby would grow up watching how Eleanor treated me. Watching how Brian failed to defend me. Watching the family dynamics play out over holidays and birthdays and family gatherings. I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let my child grow up thinking it was okay to treat people the way Eleanor treated me. Or worse, thinking it was normal for their father to stand by and do nothing while someone they loved was attacked. "I won't let them treat us this way anymore," I whispered to my unborn baby. "I promise you, things are going to change." He didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew I needed proof of Eleanor's sabotage, documentation of her behavior. I needed allies within the family. And most importantly, I needed to stop reacting emotionally and start thinking strategically. The next morning, I started gathering evidence. I went through my email history and found messages from Eleanor that were subtly manipulative, suggesting she disapproved of my choices while pretending to be helpful. I saved screenshots of text messages where she'd offered advice that was really criticism. I contacted the original venue for the baby shower and, after some persistent questioning, learned that yes, someone had called claiming to be from our party and had cancelled the reservation. The receptionist couldn't confirm who, but she remembered it was an older woman with an authoritative tone. I called the bakery and got the same story. Someone had called to change our order, claiming to be me, but the voice had been older and they'd thought it was strange. I documented all of it. Dates, times, details. I created a folder on my computer labeled Family Records, and saved everything there. It felt calculated and cold, but I needed to be both if I was going to change anything. I also started paying closer attention to Eleanor's behavior in general. I noticed how she'd say something cruel, then immediately pivot to looking innocent if someone called her out. How she'd play the victim if anyone challenged her. How she manipulated Brian and his siblings through guilt and obligation. Over the next few weeks, I changed my approach to Eleanor completely. Where I'd once tried to please her, hoping to win her approval, I now simply observed. When she made a snide comment about my parenting choices during a family dinner, "I do hope you're planning to do things properly, unlike so many young mothers these days," I didn't defend myself or explain my reasoning. I just smiled politely and changed the subject. Threw her off balance. She'd expected me to engage, to justify myself, to give her an opening for more criticism. When I didn't, she looked almost confused. Brian's sister, Vanessa, noticed the change. After dinner, she pulled me aside. "You handled Mom differently tonight," she said. "Usually you try to explain things to her." "I realized there's no point," I replied. "She's not interested in understanding. She just wants to criticize." Vanessa was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. "You're right. I've spent my whole life trying to please her, and it's never enough. Nothing's ever enough for Eleanor Hayes." There was bitterness in her voice, and I filed that information away. Vanessa was unhappy with Eleanor too. That could be useful. I stopped attending every family function. When Eleanor hosted Sunday dinners, I started declining half the invitations, citing pregnancy fatigue or work commitments. This drove Eleanor crazy. She'd call Brian, demanding to know why I wasn't coming, suggesting I was being disrespectful or didn't care about family. But I held firm. I wasn't going to subject myself to her toxic behavior just to maintain false peace. The less I engaged with Eleanor, the clearer I could think. I had space to breathe, to plan, to prepare for what came next. And I noticed something interesting. Without me there as a target, Eleanor started directing her criticism toward her other children. Vanessa called me one evening, frustrated. "Mom spent the entire dinner criticizing my career choices," she said. "Like she suddenly cares that I'm in marketing instead of law. Where is this coming from?" "It's not about you," I told her gently. "It's about control. Eleanor needs someone to control and criticize. Usually that's me. When I'm not there, she finds someone else." Vanessa was silent, processing. "That's kind of messed up." "It is," I agreed. "But it's who she is. And it's not going to change unless we stop accepting it." 6 weeks after the baby shower disaster, Eleanor announced she was planning a family vacation, a week at a lake house she'd rented 2 hours away. "It would be a wonderful bonding experience," she declared at Sunday dinner, "before the baby arrives and everything changes." Brian was immediately enthusiastic. "That sounds great, Mom. When is it?" 2 weeks from Saturday," Eleanor said. "I've already booked the house. It sleeps 12, so there's plenty of room for everyone." She looked around the table at her 3 children and their spouses. "I expect everyone to be there. Family is important, especially now." That last part was clearly directed at me. I smiled blandly. "That sounds lovely. Thank you for organizing it." Eleanor looked surprised that I'd agreed so easily. She'd probably expected resistance, giving her an opportunity to guilt-trip me about not prioritizing family. But I'd learned my lesson. I wasn't going to fight the battles she wanted me to fight. I was going to choose my own battlefield. And this vacation would be perfect. A week with the entire family, away from the usual distractions, where Eleanor's behavior couldn't be hidden or ignored. Yes, this would do nicely. In the 2 weeks before the vacation, I had quiet conversations with Brian's siblings. Not dramatic confrontations, just casual mentions of what had happened at the baby shower. "Your mom grabbed the microphone and called me an outsider in front of 60 people, I told Vanessa over coffee. "Did you know she was planning to do that?" Vanessa looked horrified. "She what?" "No, I had no idea. I mean, I saw her take the mic, but I thought she was just going to say congratulations or something. She spent 5 minutes explaining how the shower wasn't up to Hayes' family standards," I said. "It was humiliating. I didn't have to exaggerate. The facts were damning enough." I had a similar conversation with Brian's brother, Kyle, and his wife, Nina. "Eleanor's been sabotaging things," I explained, showing them the documentation I'd gathered. The venue cancellation, the catering problems, all of it traces back to her. Kyle looked uncomfortable. "Are you sure?" That seems extreme, even for Mom. I'm sure, I said firmly. And I have proof. I showed them the email from the venue, the bakery's records. They couldn't dismiss it as paranoia or oversensitivity. These were facts, documented and clear. Seeds of doubt about Eleanor were taking root. Eleanor grew bolder as the vacation approached. She called me directly, something she rarely did, to discuss expectations for the trip. I assume you understand this is a Hayes family tradition, she said. We have certain ways of doing things. I expect everyone to participate in family activities, not hide away in their rooms. Of course, I said pleasantly. I'm looking forward to spending time with everyone. There was a pause. Eleanor had clearly expected pushback. Good. And Lauren, I hope there won't be any dramatics. Some people have a tendency to create problems where none exist. My hand tightened on the phone. I agree. Drama is exhausting. I prefer dealing with facts and honest communication. Another pause. Yes. Well, I'll see you Saturday. After she hung up, I sat back and smiled. Eleanor thought she'd won at the baby shower. She thought that by publicly humiliating me, she'd established dominance, proven I didn't belong. But Eleanor had made a critical mistake. She'd shown her true nature in front of witnesses. And now everyone was watching her more carefully, noticing things they'd overlooked before. Her overconfidence would be her downfall. I just had to be patient and let her hang herself with her own rope. The lake house was beautiful. A large rustic cabin with a dock, multiple bedrooms, and a huge deck overlooking the water. We arrived on Saturday afternoon, the last to show up because Brian had insisted on stopping at 3 different stores for snacks Eleanor wouldn't approve of. Eleanor stood on the porch, directing everyone like a general commanding troops. Kyle, take those bags to the room on the left. Vanessa, help me with the groceries. Brian, your father's old fishing rods are in the garage if you want them. He turned to me. Lauren, you can rest if you need to. I know pregnancy can be tiring. Her tone was saccharine, but I heard the subtext. You're not needed. You're not useful. You can sit aside while the real family does the work. Actually, I'd love to help with dinner, I said cheerfully. What can I do? Eleanor's smile tightened. That's not necessary. You should rest. I'm fine, I insisted. Really, I want to help. For the next hour, I helped Nina prepare dinner while Eleanor hovered, making suggestions that were really criticisms. That's too much salt. We usually chop the vegetables smaller. I hope everyone likes overcooked pasta. Nina and I exchanged glances but said nothing. By the time dinner was ready, everyone had noticed Eleanor's behavior. The constant corrections, the subtle put-downs, the way she tried to control every aspect of the meal preparation. That evening at dinner, Eleanor held court at the head of the table, telling stories about Brian's childhood and Hayes' family history. Most of the stories seemed designed to remind everyone of family traditions I wasn't part of, memories I didn't share. Remember when we came here the summer after your father's promotion? She asked her children. That was such a special time. Just the 5 of us, the way a family should be. Vanessa shifted uncomfortably. Kyle cleared his throat. Then Eleanor turned her attention to me. So Lauren, have you given any thought to how you'll handle childcare? I do hope you're planning to stay home at least for the first few years. That's what I did, of course. Children need their mothers. I'm planning to take maternity leave and then return to work part-time, I said calmly. Brian and I have discussed it and made the decision that works best for our family. Eleanor's expression soured. I see. Well, every family has different priorities, I suppose. Though I always believed children should come first, before careers and personal ambitions. The implication was clear. I was selfish for wanting to work. I didn't care about my child as much as Eleanor had cared about hers. I set down my fork carefully. Do you really think that's appropriate? The table went quiet. Everyone stopped eating and looked between Eleanor and me. Eleanor blinked, caught off guard. Excuse me. The implication that I don't put my child first, I said, my voice steady. That I'm selfish for planning to return to work. Do you really think that's appropriate? Eleanor's mouth opened and closed. For maybe the first time in her life, she didn't have a comeback ready. I wasn't implying. Yes, you were, I said, still calm. You've been implying things about my character and my choices since the day we met. And I've let it slide because I wanted to keep the peace. But I'm done with that. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder where I'd saved everything. Did you know that someone called our baby shower venue and cancelled our reservation? An older woman with an authoritative tone, according to the receptionist. I looked directly at Eleanor. Was that you? The color drained from her face. I have no idea what you're talking about. The bakery got a similar call, I continued. Someone claiming to be me, changing our order. But the baker said the voice sounded older. Strange, isn't it? And then at the shower itself, you grabbed the microphone and called me an outsider in front of 60 people. Brian spoke up for the first time. Mom, you did take the microphone. I was there. Eleanor turned on him. I was trying to salvage a disaster. The shower was poorly planned, and I was helping. By calling me an outsider. Yes. By saying nothing I did was up to Hayes' family standards. That was helping. Around the table, Brian's siblings were staring at their mother with dawning realization. Vanessa looked horrified. Kyle's jaw was clenched. Nina had tears in her eyes. Eleanor stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I don't have to listen to these accusations. After everything I've done for this family, this is how you treat me. Her voice was rising, becoming shrill. I've dedicated my life to my children, to maintaining our family standards, to ensuring the Hayes name means something. And this is the thanks I get. Being attacked by someone who's never understood what family really means. What family really means. I stood too, my own anger finally breaking through my careful control. Family doesn't sabotage baby showers. Family doesn't humiliate people in public. Family doesn't spend years making someone feel like they're not good enough, that they don't belong. Eleanor's face was red now. You're manipulating them. You're trying to turn my children against me. I don't have to, I said quietly. You're doing that yourself. I'm just making sure they see it. Kyle stood up. Mom, did you really sabotage Lauren's baby shower? Of course not. This is ridiculous. Eleanor looked around the table desperately. Brian, tell them. Tell them I would never. But Brian was staring at his plate, not meeting anyone's eyes. Brian. Eleanor's voice cracked. Say something. He looked up slowly, and I saw something I'd never seen before in his face. Resolve. Mom, enough. Just enough. The next morning was tense. Eleanor stayed in her room, claiming she didn't feel well. The rest of us ate breakfast on the deck, speaking in quiet voices. Brian's father had passed away 5 years ago, and I think we all felt his absence keenly. He would have known how to handle this. He would have told Eleanor to apologize, to do better. Without him, we were all floundering. After breakfast, Brian and I took a walk along the lake. I'm sorry, he said finally, for not standing up for you sooner. For all the times I told you that you were being too sensitive, that Mom didn't mean it that way. I was wrong. I looked at him. My husband, the father of my unborn child, the man who'd chosen the path of least resistance for so long. What changed? He was quiet for a moment, seeing it all laid out like that. The evidence, the pattern. I couldn't deny it anymore. And realizing that our kid is going to grow up watching this dynamic. He stopped walking and turned to face me. I don't want our child to think that's okay. That it's normal to treat people that way, or to stand by while it happens. So what are we going to do? Yes. Brian took a deep breath. We're going to set boundaries. Real ones. And we're going to enforce them, even if Mom doesn't like it. That evening, the family gathered in the living room. Eleanor emerged from her room, looking pale but defiant. I think we need to talk, Kyle said. As a family. Eleanor sat in an armchair, arms crossed. If this is going to be another attack. It's not an attack, Vanessa interrupted. But we can't pretend everything is fine, Mom. Lauren's not the first person you've treated this way. You did the same thing to Nina when Kyle married her. You made comments about my career choices for years until I stopped telling you about my work. You've spent our entire lives making us feel like nothing we did was good enough unless you approved of it. Eleanor's eyes widened. How dare you? It's true, Brian said quietly. Dad used to soften the blow, but he's gone now, and we can all see it clearly. You need to control everything and everyone. And when you can't, you sabotage or criticize until you get your way. Tears streamed down Eleanor's face, but I wasn't sure if they were genuine or manipulative. After everything I've sacrificed, she whispered. This is what you think of me. We love you, Mom, Kyle said. But love doesn't mean accepting toxic behavior. Things have to change. The rest of the vacation was subdued. Eleanor mostly kept to herself, coming out only for meals and then retreating back to her room. There were no more snide comments, no more attempts to control everything. Just silence. Part of me felt guilty. Part of me wondered if we'd been too harsh. But then I'd remember the baby shower, the sabotage, the years of subtle cruelty, and the guilt faded. We cut the vacation short by 2 days. Everyone was ready to go home, to have space to process what had happened. Before we left, I approached Eleanor privately on the deck. I didn't want it to be this way, I told her. I really did try to build a relationship with you. Eleanor looked at me, her face hard. You've ruined this family. No, I said firmly. I've just refused to let you ruin me. Back home I made a decision. In 3 weeks I was going to host a small gathering, a do-over baby shower of sorts. Just friends and family members who actually supported me. People who'd been there through the chaos and had my back. I sent out invitations to everyone, except Eleanor. When Brian asked if I was sure, I nodded. This is a celebration of our baby, our family, the life we're building. It's not a stage for her drama. 3 weeks later, I stood in my friend's backyard, surrounded by people who loved me. The decorations were beautiful. Exactly what I'd envisioned from the start. The food was perfect. The laughter was genuine. Chloe made a toast, talking about strength and motherhood and new beginnings. Vanessa and Nina were there, helping serve cake and playing games. Kyle gave a speech about how lucky this baby was to have a mother like me. Brian stood beside me the entire time, his hand in mine, finally choosing me over his mother's approval. Felt powerful. Not in a vindictive way, but in a deeply settled way. I'd stood up for myself and my child. I'd refused to accept abuse disguised as tradition or high standards. And I'd done it without becoming cruel or petty, just firm and clear about what I would and wouldn't tolerate. Eleanor's absence spoke louder than any words could. She'd been given a choice, change or be excluded. She'd chosen to stay away rather than apologize or adjust her behavior. That was on her, not on me. As I felt my baby kick, I smiled. Your grandmother will be in your life, I whispered. But on our terms, not hers. I promise you'll grow up knowing what healthy love looks like. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't fighting fire with fire. It's letting toxic people burn themselves out while you shine brighter. And that's exactly what I intended to do.